Hello, and welcome to the introductory episode of Fitness and Consciousness. I am your host, Ryan Hadley. I'm a Strong First certified kettlebell instructor. I started as a trainer in 1999, and I have experience in a lot of different methods of fitness and martial arts, and this show will be about the myriad ways of fitness, including all movement, animal forms, yoga, and we'll get into nature, primal living, sacred sexuality, and many other topics of higher consciousness. So we will cover strength and conditioning, but we're going to get into the deeper levels of each of these disciplines. My guests will be experts or practitioners of these different disciplines to come on and give their views, their biography, their message. What are they doing now? What are they going to be doing? What are they excited about teaching, excited about learning? Because that's what it's really all about. I go somewhere and I learn. I go somewhere else and I teach it. The show will usually last maybe 30 to 60 minutes, sometimes longer. We may have video, so perhaps I'll have a guest speaking for 45 minutes. And then if you want to see more of what they're doing, then you can go to the Fitness and Consciousness YouTube page and see what kind of techniques they are offering. So a little bit about my past. I grew up boxing and wrestling with my dad, playing sports of all kinds with my buddies in the neighborhood, sometimes on organized teams. Then when I was 18, my dad had been reading about Royce Gracie, and he knew I was training with buddies in martial arts, and he told me this Royce Gracie guy is beating up guys a lot bigger and stronger than him, and he was encouraging me to start jiu-jitsu. So I found my original jiu-jitsu teacher. He was a traditional Japanese-style jiu-jitsu. He was from Korea. And it just blew my mind how efficient it was. And, after learning from buddies of mine for months or longer, and in just like a few classes, I was able to get them in all these different submissions when we were training. And this continued on, and I trained with friends of all sorts of different styles. Then I became a personal fitness trainer when I was 20, just turned 20. It was in 1999. I worked with clients of all backgrounds. Maybe they were high school athletes or 70-some years old and just trying to stay mobile. And a couple years later, I did it for about 2 years exactly, and I was working for this successful personal training studio, and I became disenchanted with what I thought it took to be successful in this business. There were some, opposing views between what I and the owner had, and I was an employee, not an independent trainer. And even though it was successful and I was training at least 30 some hours a week, the lack of control and the lack of what I thought was a higher level of training made me want to quit. And even though I liked all my clients, I liked what I did, it was more the environment was not healthy for me. So I started selling lawn care, and I would train friends of friends in my backyard or garage in martial arts or lifting, and just did it for fun. I didn't want to worry about making money from it. And then I remember the moment I pulled the book off the library shelf. It was about 8 years ago, maybe a little more, called The Russian Kettlebell Challenge. And I had seen most of the strength books at the library, but this one caught my eye, and it's this kind of a thin book, and this guy was not a big, hugely muscled bodybuilder type, and it just blew my mind. Again, so I took the book home. I happened to find a kettlebell. It was the first one I remember seeing in person. I found it at the used sporting goods store. And I started working on these techniques. So the author, Pavel Tsatsouline, embodied what I wanted for myself. Didn't really care about being the biggest guy around, or just to pump up muscles for no particular reason, or except for looks, which is okay too. But he wanted to apply his strength and power and endurance to martial arts, which was what I was pretty much training for. So as some time went and I got more used to his method, I thought that if I do get back into training professionally, it would only be with his certification, and it was just impossible for me at the time. I couldn't imagine doing 100 snatches with a 53-pound kettlebell in 5 minutes. That seemed crazy. It's like, these guys are like Superman. I mean, how can you even do that? But following the method, and part of it doing things my own way, I was able to reach that goal in May of 2015 through Strong First, Pavel's newer company. So right after that, I started training as an independent, and I work with clients from 7 years old to 70 something. And kettlebells are the main things I use in my classes, but I also, with individual clients, or sometimes in classes, we'll use dumbbells and barbells, pull-up bar, playground equipment, a lot of body weight. So we're doing, say you're doing animal locomotion, like frog jumps, and then while you're doing that, you land and go into a crow pose, so like you would see in a yoga class. And I kind of made up, or innovated different animal locomotion into hand balance techniques. So I'll encourage students to learn a few. So here's how you do these few techniques. Now start blending them together how you want. Maybe go with the rhythm of the music. You're like swaying around, or you're hopping to the beat, or swaying to the beat, whichever feels right for the student, and make up your own transitions. We also meditate at the end of class, and that includes the kids' classes. Usually at the end of the kids' classes, either I or usually one of the kids will read an ancient story from somewhere around the world. One of the places that I teach, the main place that I teach, is called White Pine Wilderness Academy. It's a wilderness survival school, and I teach strength and conditioning classes out of that. The owner, Matt Scholl, will be on my podcast soon. And what we do there is just a bit different than what you would see at your typical gym. It has a different spirit to it. So it's not just mirrors and biceps. I mean, if that's your thing, then great. I don't have anything against it. But what I'm doing is just a little bit different. So that is the introduction for this podcast. I will leave it at that for now. Thank you for tuning in, and if you would like to contact the show, you can do so at fitnessandconsciousness@gmail.com. And if you would like to contact me for training, whether you are local or remote, I do online training also, you can contact me at ryan@hadleyfitness.com. That's Ryan, RYAN, at Hadley, HADLEY, fitness.com. Again, thanks for tuning in to Fitness and Consciousness.